this was coming. Bill Finnegan, the creator of the legendary Klon Centaur, has officially filed a lawsuit against Behringer. Yep, the guy who hand-built what might be the most mythical overdrive pedal of all time is going after the world's biggest clone factory. And what's this all about? Behringer's Centaur-style overdrive pedal, a pedal that looks like a Klon, sounds like a Klon, and costs about 1/100th as much as a Klon. Let's back up a second. If you're a guitar nerd, and if you're watching this, you probably are, you know the Klon Centaur. Transparent overdrive, clean boost magic, magical unicorn logo, bro. And used by everyone from Jeff Beck to John Mayer. Original models sell for $2,000 to $5,000 to upwards of $10,000. Yeah, for a pedal. And that's if you can even find one. Bill Finnegan designed it in the 90s and attempted to keep the circuit secret by covering it in black goop. He hand-built every one himself. It wasn't just hype, it was tone gold. And when he stopped building them, the legend only grew. Then Behringer steps in. You know Behringer, masters of the budget clone. They've built a reputation, some say notorious, for copying iconic pedals and selling them for beer money prices. We're talking $29.99 for something that's supposedly chasing the Centaur tone. The graphics are familiar. The knob layout's almost identical. The name? Vintage Overdrive or something close, depending on which clone you're looking at. It's no secret who they're targeting. So now Finnegan's filed a lawsuit. He's claiming intellectual property infringement. We're talking about trade dress, how the pedal looks, and possibly other proprietary design elements. It's not just about the circuit anymore. It's about legacy and identity, maybe even tone justice. Behringer hasn't made a formal public statement yet, but let's be real. This isn't their first ride on the legal roller coaster. They've danced with lawsuits from other giants too. So why does this matter to you and me? Players, collectors, working musicians, tone hounds. Because this isn't just a lawsuit. It's a war between two worlds. The boutique builder who poured his soul into a circuit and then covered it with black goop. And the clone giant giving the working man a shot at Klon tone without the 5-figure price tag. Now this is deep for me. Because, man, I've always been a working man's guitar player, never hit the jackpot, always had to try to find if there was some tone that was the flavor of the month, and Klon was one of them, and I can remember the Zen Drive, and I think even before the Klon wasn't there, there was another pedal, I can't think of the name. If you remember that pedal, hit me up in the comments. But there's been these mythical pedals that come along and then, the prices get inflated and you try to find alternatives for this pedal and it just becomes this tone chasing thing that many of us working musicians can't afford. And here's the deal, man. If you're a regular old Nashville side man like I was, right? Oftentimes we are tasked with getting the tones from legendary session players, and we're expected to get these tones, but we're trying to get champagne tones on a beer budget, right? And that's the reality of all this. The studio guys have a curated amount of gear, sometimes vintage gear, sometimes vintage amps, and then these exotic pedals that cost thousands of dollars. They have access to all that stuff. They keep it in a drawer in their, that their cartage rolls into the studio. But us sidemen that are out on the road making that beer money, right? And drinking enough beer along the way, we're expected to cop those tones. And how do you do it if you're a poor musician? And that's something that a lot of people need to realize. If you're starting out as a guitar player, right, you're expected to sound as good as the studio greats. You're expected to have the tones and have a killer tone, right? But there's no way when you're starting out where you have the money to blow, anywhere from 5 to 10 grand on a Klon Centaur, right? But then, look at the big stars up on stage with their Klon Centaurs. And the reality is, man, you can't compete, right? So and look, there's been so many Klon clones. There's too many to mention. I just recently did a demo of the Joyo Tauren, which is a great sounding Klon-like pedal, right? And I'm not an expert on the circuit, right? But I've heard with my ears, right? I've tried a lot of different Klon clones in the past, but Behringer making this very affordable pedal that even has the Centaur on it, and looking so much like Bill Finnegan's pedal, who, by the way, Bill is still technically making the pedals by himself, by hand, and then he auctions them off on eBay, right? So you can imagine that those are going for thousands of dollars. There's just no way, because here's the deal. Whether it's a Dumble amp, whether it's a Klon Centaur, whether it's a vintage Tube Screamer or a TS9 or any number of pedals that end up becoming the holy grail of tone, or an original fuzz face, or whatever it is, man, the prices keep going up. I'm shocked even at the cost of Marshall heads, vintage Marshall heads these days. The prices are going through the roof. And the reality is, if you're an up-and-coming player, you can't afford to pay those prices because you haven't made that kind of money yet. So what do? A company like Behringer comes along. And look, here's the other thing. If you're an average sideman, right, and you did happen to get a Klon Centaur, maybe some higher level player gifts you one, or maybe you get a deal on one, or maybe you find one somewhere, right? If you're wise, you're not going to take that out on the road and have it get ruined, right? So here comes Behringer, and they've got a solution. Here's a pedal. It looks almost like the real thing. It sounds great. I can easily replace it. I could have 2 or 3 backups out on the road with me. So why wouldn't you take the less expensive pedal out? I know that I would most certainly do that. Just like I wouldn't take a 59 Les Paul if I'm just an average sideman out on the road. Chances are something is going to happen to it. So companies like Behringer see this as an opportunity to make money. Now, what's going to happen with this lawsuit? We have no way of knowing, but here's an interesting, listen to what Bill Finnegan posted on his Klon Instagram account. Now, Bill Finnegan on his Klon LLC Instagram account posted this. Hi, everyone. Quick heads up. that this past Friday, 5/30/25, IP attorneys I have engaged filed a federal lawsuit against a well-known pedal manufacturer that is currently marketing and mass producing a pedal that we believe blatantly infringes upon specific intellectual property owned by my company, Klon LLC. For the record, I have never been consulted in any way about this pedal. It has never been authorized by me, and I have never had any involvement whatsoever in its design, production, or marketing. You may have questions about this pedal, so I encourage you to read the filed complaint, which you can access via the hyperlink that has now been added to the bio of this Klon LLC Instagram. Please note that I do not plan to publicly comment on this matter while the litigation is pending. If you're interested in buying an authentic Centaur pedal, please keep an eye out for the eBay auctions by Klon LLC. The eBay seller ID is Klon Direct Sales, as I have been and plan to continue hand building and selling new Centaur pedals through at least Klon's eBay sales channel. Thanks to everyone who has supported me with regard to my Klon-related efforts over the years. I have always greatly appreciated it. Now, here's the deal. If Finnegan wins, it could set a precedent. Pedal makers might think twice before releasing lookalike gear. If Behringer wins, expect a flood of even closer clones and maybe less protection for creators like Bill. Now, I'll say this. I get both sides. Bill Finnegan deserves respect. The Klon isn't just a circuit, it's a legacy. But Behringer's giving players a way to taste that legacy without selling a kidney. The bigger question is, can you clone tone? Or is there something you just can't rip off? Mojo, maybe. For me, I've played a real Klon KTR. I used to use it down in Lower Broadway, and have you seen the prices of those lately, right? But I sold it eventually because I'm a player, right? And I knew I could sell it and make a profit, right? But here's the deal. Some clones are damn close, but none of them are a Klon. Just like owning a Les Paul copy doesn't make it a custom shop. So what do you think? Is Behringer stealing? I want to hear from everybody in the comments. Or is this just capitalism doing its thing? Would you spend $5 to $9 grand on a real Klon Centaur? Or grab the clone and spend the rest on tacos and tubes? Hit me up in the comments and stay tuned for me playing a little tasty licks on my Behringer clone. Hit the like, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll keep you posted as this lawsuit unfolds. Till then, keep chasing tone, not trouble, dudes.